see the country going in the right direction, and they can see the government, even if it hasn't quite finished delivering some of those things, but can see how it's going to build a better country. I think that will be the trick.
Do you look at the current state of play and think that in terms of policy, or perhaps in terms of messaging, or perhaps both, that there does need to be a kind of a reboot, a relaunch, a reset, whatever you want to call it?
The way we used to think about it was more doubling down, and I definitely see that as needing to sort of go harder and faster, sort of further and faster, I think was a phrase we used a lot on the economy. And I think the sort of demand for change and appetite for change is there.
Does any part of you wonder, actually, could we have afforded to be a bit more radical in government? I'm thinking of things like nationalising water, things that polled really well with perhaps the left of the Labour Party, but which are also quite popular with the public.
You've got to answer the question of what is actually going to turn around an industry, how are we going to attract investment into an industry. The policy development process was very much what's the problem, what's the solution, how can we practically make progress on that. So I'd sort of reject that the government isn't wanting to be radical. It has nationalised some industries, rail has come into public ownership, but the point isn't to be radical, the point is to make a difference, and a tangible difference to people's lives.
One possible reason for needing a reset might have something to do with some embarrassing policy U-turns this year.
The government has formally rowed back on planned cuts to some benefits.
And then when the Prime Minister announces they're going to do something on winter fuel, it's a clumsy U-turn, badly executed.
Is there a bit of a disconnect in Number 10 between those devising policies, for example, on disability benefits, and people who are plugged in to actually what Labour backbenchers might feel about that?
I think it's less that there's a disconnect. I think it's more that when you're in government, you can't avoid the trade-offs, right? So if you take winter fuel, the government had to make difficult decisions on, what spending cuts it wanted to make. There was a bit of a disconnect, I guess, in that sort of, and the anticipated backlash on welfare was probably larger, but because the policy comes from a place of what is the problem, let's not shy away from the challenges, it can lead into the government wanting to move really quickly. I think that's where it's sort of maybe gone wrong, rather than necessarily a sort of disconnect.
The Labour government, it seems to me, what you're saying is sort of betting the house on actually delivering in a way that people notice by the time of the next general election. And I just wondered, just instinctively, do you feel confident that will happen?
I'm optimistic. There has been a lot of things that have happened over the last year which don't necessarily get shiny headlines. They will make a difference. In the top team, you have people who are willing to try and grasp problems. Rachel Reeves sit there with her table of projects that she has announced, and really honing in on asking, is this thing being delivered? And I think Keir is exactly the same way.
Do you just worry that in the political climate we live in, you don't really have time? You've only got a certain number of years to make people feel better. And if you can't, then you won't get another chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why things have to be done quickly. I don't think there's silver bullets out there, as it were, right? I totally am very concerned about the pace of change. But I think 5 years can be a long period of time, actually, and you can get a lot done. The question will be, have you made enough difference, and is the plan working? You can't kid people's bank balances, right? They'll know if they're better off or not.
And of course, then there is the turquoise elephant in the room.
Good morning, everybody. Today we launch Operation Restoring Justice. And as far as the people of this country is concerned, frankly, these measures can't come soon enough.
The thing that is fueling the popularity of Farage is a sense that the country's not working, right? You really have to be making progress on delivering for the country and on what they really care about, whether it's sort of the economy, crime, immigration, etc. Because if we don't, the electorate isn't attached to the Labour Party in the way that I am, they'll deliver their judgment.
Ravinder Athwal clearly feels that beneath what we, the media, obsess over in terms of poll numbers and set-piece moments, there is a deeper process of change that's already underway, that voters might not be able to see yet, but which he's convinced they will in time. But we live in a political climate where selling a message matters just as much as delivering change. This probably explains why the PM has already reached for one shiny reset lever this summer. One marked shake up your comms operation. In a pretty surprising move, David Dinsmore, the former editor of the Sun newspaper, which is not typically a Labour hymn sheet, has been appointed to the new civil service role of Permanent Secretary for Communications, tasked with articulating the government's purpose more clearly in a digital age. Okay, so new comms operation in the bag, but Dinsmore doesn't start until November. Luckily before then, there is a handy opportunity for any struggling Prime Minister to remind the country why they've been put in charge in the first place. The golden reset moment that is a PM's party conference speech, fast approaching at the end of September.
The speech is an extraordinary moment where you hold the attention of the country. It's quite something having the leader of the country stand up and